Good morning. My name is Jenny, and I'm a high performance mindset and prosperity coach. And I'm looking forward to sharing how you can create a vision for your future with Pearl.
Hello, sunshine, good to see you again. Had to walk out to let you back in. Stuck in a storm of a relationship. Lost my fire. Oh, and I forgot about me for way too long. But it's rolled on. Now there ain't no shade around here.
Hey everybody, it's Pearl Chiarenza, and I want to welcome you to our new titled show, which is now no longer Conversations with Pearl, which had great conversations, but we're going to have even more in-depth conversations in our new podcast named Soulful Self-Care Conversations. And today, I'm so excited to bring our special guest, Jeni. She is a high-performance mindset and prosperity coach, helping entrepreneurs and sales professionals to 10x their businesses. Jeni is a passionate about serving and helping people, and this work and has been the most fulfilling and rewarding to see what people are capable of doing and how they can truly transform and amaze themselves. And I'm so excited to have you part of the show and to share with us today, Jeni. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So I like to do this thing. And so the listeners, if you're new to us, this is something fun I always like to do at the beginning of the show. And if you've been joining us for the past few years, then you'll understand where it comes from. It's going to sound familiar, but I always, when I coach, some of the times when I coach with my clients, I always talk about, let's talk to the inner child. Like, let's talk to her and see, what was life like for her when she was growing up. But with my guest, I don't want to coach you into your little inner child thing. But what I like to know is, what was that inner child when you were younger wanting to grow up to be today? And so, oftentimes we hear, when we talk to our kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they'll say, I want to be a teacher. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be the president of the United States, whatever those big, dreams we have when we're little. And as we go through life, it's interesting to see how, while we may not be the president of the United States, we might be our own presidential entrepreneur. We may not, like me, I wanted to be a teacher growing up. I want to teach elementary school. While I'm not teaching elementary school, I certainly am teaching women of, my age and my demographics and how to put themselves first, become that hero of their lives. So talk to us about, Jeni, your inner child. What did you want to be when you were growing up? And how does it correlate to what you're doing today?
Yeah, it's funny. I never really had like a solid answer for that question whenever I was asked, especially when I was really young. The first time I can remember having like a set, oh, I'm going to do this was actually in fifth grade. And I said I wanted to be a teacher, not because I was like, oh, I really want to be a teacher, but because I wanted to show my fifth grade teacher how to do it better. So I was like, I'm going to show you, I'm going to become a teacher and show you how to do this where you don't have to give all this homework every night. I think I was just mad that I had so much work to do. And that was my first memory of having like a distinct idea. And then, just from there, I decided pretty early in high school, actually, that I wanted to become a physical therapist. So I just went straight on to pursuing that. And I did do that for quite a while. And, it just was never quite as fulfilling. I felt like I was missing out on things. People needed more than just that one layer of help. And I felt like I was helping people more on an emotional level. And that's kind of what led me into this new path. And yeah, so as a child, I think I do love teaching, actually. We homeschool now, and and that was a part of being a physical therapist that I love to do, always educating my patients. So it wasn't like that far-fetched, but just my reasoning at the time was not as.
Well, I'm like listening to you and I'm going, but like I love that you want to teach your teacher in fifth grade how to do it better. How many of us did enjoy getting homework? Not many of us loved getting all that homework coming home. And now today it feels like it's even more homework. My kids are grown, but it's like, it's like even more homework. And teach the teacher how to do it better. Well, you kind of are doing that. Like you're teaching entrepreneurs how to 10x their business, right? So there is a lot of correlation there to it. And then you're homeschooling. I just had a guest on earlier today. Christian was his name, Christian Elliott. He homeschools 6 of his kids. Actually, he gives his wife the credit. But he's a supporting dad. But I mean, it's it's interesting to hear these conversations. That's why I love to have these conversations, because we all bring a different perspective to the listener and to the people that are watching us, and how we can navigate this thing we call life, right? How we can navigate how our journey wants to be. And that's part of what our conversation today is. You and I talked about, we're going to be releasing this the first part of the year, and everybody starts going, oh, I need to create a vision board, or I need to set my goals, and and they wait till January 1st to do it. And I often I was I share on my social media and to my clients that I usually start looking at this in October, because January comes, I want to get going, right? And this year has been a little challenging for me because I had, let's see, normally October I do it. Like, we had a hurricane. I do my retreats in September. So we came back for the retreat. We had a hurricane here in Florida. My son got married the next week. Then we had the second hurricane in here in Florida. So the October just went whoop, right back. And so then November was catching up, from everything from hurricane. My amazing friend, we opened up our house to her because she's gotten displaced because of the hurricane. So, navigating all of that. And then the holidays come, right? So it's like, I'm like all in. I'm like, I'm behind on getting my stuff together. How am I going to do this? Right. So I actually took the time, one night, this is no lie. I was like, I need to get this started, and this is what I want to get done. And so my goal was to get as much done. So I stayed up till 2 o'clock in the morning one night about 2 weeks ago. And I was like, this is what I want my theme to be next year. Like, I want to enjoy my journey of life. I've gone through, 2 years ago, we lost our son, Matthew, in a tragic car accident. Our amazing younger son, got married. We've had challenges with healthcare with some family members and things like that. So, and then now, my husband, the first 2 months of the year, he's going to be having 2 different surgeries for hip replacement. So I'm like, I need to get my stuff in order so I can get me jump started while I'm having to navigate, all these others. So no lie. I stayed up to 2 o'clock in the morning and said, okay, I want to get done what my theme is this year. I want to plan out what my social media is and all of that. Right. So that's what was my goal setting. So you and I talked about this, we often get so wrapped up over, what are the strategies to set up our goals? Like, how do we truly create this vision that we want for our future? And, people do what they call vision boards. They have, vision this. I actually, Jeni, I don't know if I shared with this when you and I talked before, I do vision purses. I don't do a board. I do a purse, and I literally put it on a purse. We're getting ready to have our next Vision Purse event coming up in January, but I have this belief that if it's on something I can carry, the energy that I put into doing that board is on that purse, and that comes with me where I go. Now, it's not a purse. It's not my everyday purse. It's a purse I take going grocery shopping. It's a purse I take going to meetings and things like that, because it's also a way to get people to go, what is that? But so talk to us. Let's talk about some of that, because you help businesses like to 10X, right? So there's goal setting, there's, creating visions and all of that in that world. Let's talk about what are some of the approaches you take towards getting ready to goal set and set up for the year.
Yeah. So, well, one of the first things you have to do, you got to know what you want, right? I think so many of us have these ideas and we just set kind of arbitrary goals that may not even align with what we really believe or what we really desire. And so one of the first things that I have people do is to just, without thinking of any restrictions, no financial restrictions, no anything, just list out, allow yourself to dream and imagine. And what do you really want? And you can do this for personal or for business side of things. And just start listing it and just let yourself go and really spend time on that, because you can't set a goal unless you know where you're going and you know what you really desire. And if you don't truly desire it, you don't have that, burning inside, like, I really want this goal, this is important to me, then you're not as likely to achieve it anyway. So if you aren't setting the right goals, then you're not going to go very far with it. So that's kind of one of the first things. And then I talk to people a lot about, we talk about 3 types of goals. So there's just your A-type goals, and you probably use something similar to this, but it's kind of like a lateral move. Like, you already know how to achieve this goal. I don't say you've made 10,000 a month. You're like, my goal is to continue to make 10,000 a month, but you're not growing with that. It's something that you've done before, and it's not going to cause you to, really work at anything different. And then there's your B type goal. So this is a little bit bigger, but it's still like, okay, I know how I could do this if I do this, this, and this, you know? So you have a plan or you have an idea like this could make this happen. So it's kind of stepping up to maybe that next level just a little bit. But I encourage people to make what is called a C type goal, which is big and huge. And like you have no clue how to achieve it yet. And so you gotta like, this is where you're gonna grow, right? This is where you, yourself, your business, all of that is gonna grow by making these big C type goals, right? So if you already know how to achieve it, it's probably not the right goal because you're not gonna be expanding at all like that. So those are kind of just the basics in getting started, at least in, finding out what is going to be the best goal for you and for your business.
Yeah, I love how you break that down, the A, B, and C, because you're right. We think about, oh, I already know how to do this, but what if I want to step it up bigger? What if I already make that, $10,000 a month income, but I want to make 15, so how to, or I want to go C and go big. I want to double it. Right. So how, creating those visions and those goals and that putting it down on paper. I love, like you said, like write it down. Something I love to do with my clients too is write down. I like to do like what brings you joy. What on that joy list do you want to work on in your vision this year? Right? Like what do we want to work on so that you can do those things that bring you joy? And what do you need to make that joy list happen? So let's put that on your vision board too, because who or what do you need to help bring that to fruition? I think it's and a dream big. I mean, dreaming big, there's nothing wrong with dreaming big. It's such a beautiful thing. I mean, I have, my husband and I are going to be married 40 years in 27. We've been together 40 years this year. This past August, we celebrated 40 years together, but in 3 more years, it would be 40 years. So I had this big goal of, okay, on our 40th, we're going to go to the Mediterranean. We're going to go on a cruise for 11 days. Like I've got this whole goal, right? And I was like, it was going to be 2027. Well, I always believe too, like you manifest it, it happens. Sometimes it happens sooner. And sometimes things happen because they're supposed to happen in that timing, right? And so funny thing is I belong to this really cool club where you pay $100 every month into this club and then they match you and you can use that match with what you've put in to book, cruises, trips, whatever that is for you. So I've been doing
Yeah.
it for like 4 or 5 years, right? So I decided I wanted to test it. And I wanted to say, okay, if we're going to go, what does it look like? Well, you're supposed to, as you go through, you do these little X's going, I understand I'm booking this. I understand there's no refund, right? So I checked all those X's because I wanted to see the final box. Well, I thought I was exiting out of everything. And I actually
Oh,
clicked yes. And I was like, oh no. And the thing was, I was looking at two. I was looking at Mediterranean and transatlantic, right? So I booked yes to the transatlantic and it was going to be May of next year. I'm like going, Chuck's not even going to be ready to walk. He's having double hip surgery. It's going to be
oh no.
May before he's probably comfortable walking around, right? So I was like, I called the company like, no, you checked all the boxes. I'm like, okay, I'm going to manifest this. This is going to happen. We're going to go to the Mediterranean. I'm going to make it happen. So I literally the next day called the actual cruise line and it's like, listen, I accidentally booked this. I really want this. Can you make it happen? And like, yeah, it's going to cost you a little bit more because transatlantic, it's less expensive because you're going from the States over where there it's a little different. So I'm like, okay, no problem. So the difference was minor. So I paid the difference. And so this year for Christmas in a couple weeks, I'm giving my husband a big box and it's going to say oops on it. And it's going to, so we're going to go next year. But my point in saying all that is that was our big, huge, that's our big, huge, bucket list trip. And so it's happening sooner for whatever reason. It's supposed to happen sooner. We won't know till that happens. But, that's part of that's been on my vision board for years. I knew when it was going to happen, but now it's happening sooner. And again, it goes to what we put on those vision boards. Things, we picture it and it's life happens in its timeline and we have to accept that. So that's why I like what you said, A, B, and C, because yeah, we have the lateral stuff that, I know how to do this. I know how to grow this, but B is like, I want to step it up. I want to bring it up. I want to, like you were talking about, let's go back to business for a second. I want to bring up my income. I want to bring up the clients. I want to speak on more stages, whatever that is for you. What does that look like? So, and then the big, huge ones. What if like, I love when you say, I always say, if you have a magic wand and you could get whatever you want from the genie, what would it be? Right. So what's that big, huge goal? Money's not an issue. Right. And so I love to talk about that. So we walk through this and, we write all this down and everything. And then people, one of the things that I know when I work with my clients, and I'm more personal coaching. I don't really, I have clients that are business owners, and I co-work with somebody else who's that coach with them, but I do more the personal development side. But when we take those together, one of the things I say is, okay, I have it down. I have this board. I've got this purse. Now what? Like, what do I have to do to start making this happen? And let's go back to what I said too about when you start, because I feel like if you start in January, you're starting about 6 weeks too late. That's my thought. What's your thought on that?
Oh, I love that. It's especially if you have a big goal that you want to achieve within the next year, and it's always good to put timeframes on them, right? I mean, as you know, that might not be exactly when it happens, might be before, might be a little bit later, but it will still happen. No, I agree. I think you should definitely start it sooner than that. Because the big thing is now you have to suppress it upon your subconscious mind that you already have it, that it is already in your possession, right? And that takes time. You can't, especially if it is a big, exciting but scary goal that you don't know how to achieve yet, then you've got to build a belief around it that you already have it. And it's going to take a lot of time and consistent, constant spaced repetition to make sure that you impress that on your subconscious mind. So a little bit similar, but not quite as big as the purse that you were mentioning. I have people write it on a goal card in present tense. So as though you're saying it already exists, right? I am so happy. I'm so grateful now that I am making $50,000 a month or whatever the thing is. And you have to add emotion to it. You've got to get emotionally involved in your goals, or it's just words and it's going to just stay in your conscious mind. You're not going to internalize it into your subconscious mind. So that's what I have people do. And then you can carry that whole card around with you everywhere, right? And you say it to yourself. Anytime, you know, Bob Proctor is a huge mentor of mine. Well, he was. And he would keep it in his pocket. So every time he touched it, and for like 60 plus years, always had his gold card on him, and so it just comes to mind every single time that you know that it's there, just like you had with the purse and having all the details of your vision inside of that. And
Yeah, I love that, the gold card. What a great way. Like, it reminds me of the story I share about the rock when I was overcoming people pleasing, and I'll share that in a second. But I love the thought of having the card because you can touch it, feel it. It kind of goes back to the same thing with the purse. If you don't have that purse with you, and it might be something I might add to when I do this too, is like, write the one big goal you have that you want to carry with you no matter what happens, or the year, the end of the year, what's this one goal you want to have, and have that on you. Because I really believe there's a lot to say about having, I think that's why the purse came to fruition, because the rock story for me is I'm an overcoming people pleasing addict. So you would ask me to do anything and I would have been there to do it for you. And now I've come to the opposite extreme. Like, right now I have a family member that's going through some stuff, and it's their second time around with it. And I was like, you know what, this time I was all in for you. This time I'm going to tell you and the people that are supporting you, here's when I'm available. And if I'm not, like this morning, I got up and I text and I said, hey, no time today for anything to do with this thing. I'll have to talk to you tomorrow. Right. So don't text me, email me, nothing, save it for tomorrow, because I have no energy for that today. And so it's so powerful. And it's what I coach on, what I teach. We have to set those boundaries. And so it took a lot of work for me to do that. Like, one of my visions was to start speaking and coaching more. And when I started on this journey to become a coach, I decided to take this class. It was called Identity and Destiny course. And so you had 6 weeks. And at the end of 6 weeks, you had to give your I am statement. And I still was saying I was all the titles that I was wearing. I was mom, I was volunteer, all this stuff. And somebody that I met, Shannon, in the course, she called me out. She's like, where have you been? You still are like, who's Pearl? And I was sat there and I was like, oh my gosh, she's so right. I'm still saying all this stuff. So I remember after that course, I was like, I got to figure this out. I sent my oldest off to college. My youngest one, he was very independent. He takes after me, where he could just do things on his own. And so I was walking one day and I happened to see this rock on the ground. It just caught my eye and I picked it up and put it in my pocket. I happened to be on the way to a networking event. And I get to the events and somebody asked me to do something for fundraising around animals. And I was like, I looked at it, my hand happened to touch my pocket. I was like, no. And I was like, I literally said it just like that. I was like, ooh, I looked at it, I go, oh, I didn't mean it like that. I said, I'm so sorry. No, I would love to help you with that. And I love my dog and I like the cat we have somewhat, but I just, animal fundraising is just not my jam. So I said no. And at the end of the day, I was like, that didn't hurt too badly, especially somebody who was doing everything for everybody. And so I made a commitment that night that rock, I was going to move 3 times a day, saying no to something or someone. And if I had not at the end of the night before I went to bed, because, when we show up for everybody and do everything for everybody, we can't go after our goals. We can't focus on what our vision is. And we wake up in the middle of the night going, oh my God, I want to do that. And I didn't do that because I helped this. So I decided that I was going to text, email, or call somebody and say no to them. So at the end of the day, if I hadn't done that 3 times, that's what I had to do. And what came out of that was what, I call my Shiro method. I became like so much stronger in understanding that no was a complete sentence, that I can say it as happy as I say yes. And then as I became happier, I was less stressed. I was sleeping at night. I was working on my goals, my strategies, my vision. I was seeing that stuff happen. And then I became empowered. I became empowered to be like, oh, if I'm on my path to my goal and my vision, I'm going to work more on that than over here for this person because this isn't serving me, right? And then what the cool thing that was happening, Jeni, was like I was walking into rooms and people were noticing and saying, like, what's different about you? Like, did you cut your hair? Have you lost weight? No, I just was like, I'm showing up for me first, And so the funny thing about all of that, like we were talking earlier about your inner child and what you want to be when you grow up, I always wanted to be a teacher. That was originally something I always wanted to do. So I was now doing that. It was just in a different capacity than I thought when I was younger, right? So at the end of the day, as that was happening, I started working on my goals. I started, I had this thought about doing these brunches, and the brunches have now turned into retreats, and my retreats are turning into helping clients more personally from the retreats, moving forward. And so, having those goals and visions, like you said, while they might seem small, they do happen, and go after the bigger one, and you never know what comes out of that. I love the card part. I love putting a card in my pocket, I think you just inspired me to pick what's my one big goal for the year, and make that part of my pocket, instead of my I don't need my rock anymore because I'm overcoming that. In fact, my people through all of that. So if you're listening to us today and your goal is to overcome people pleasing, whether it's the rock, whatever you do, the cool thing that happened for me on that journey was as I was saying no, I could be like, oh, you know what? Jeni teaches you how to 10x your business so much better than I could ever teach you. Let me introduce you to Jeni, right? So my people pleaser was getting sage because I was like, I was still helping, but I wasn't doing, So it was like, so it's so cool. So that vision of releasing that people pleasing was really part of the strategy that was starting to happen. So talk to the listeners about, so you've done this, you've got this goal, maybe you're carrying your your stuff in your pocket, but you have things that get in your way. Stuff happens because we know life happens. I mean, like I said, 2 years ago, we lost our son Matthew in a tragic car accident. So I say there's a day before and there's a day after, right? So for 6 months after he passed, my vision, my goals kind of just went haywire. I was sort of like floating through life, and so that's a big thing that can happen to somebody with their goals. But, that's kind of a very unusual thing that can happen. But for the listener that's listening to us, it's like, what happens if I get distracted? What happens if something gets in my way of my goal? How do I get back there? What kind of strategies can I use to get back on track?
Absolutely. So there's so many things to that. And I just want to say quickly, kind of along the same lines of what you're talking about with the people pleasing, because I have dealt with that myself a lot. And I also see myself as like a super person, and I think I can be and do all things to everyone, right? So part of and you kind of touched on that as well, is outsourcing things where I would have normally been like, no, I have to do it all. It's all got to be me. And now I'm starting to do a little bit more of that as well. Like, with small day-to-day tasks, I don't necessarily need to be doing it. I don't need them to be taking up my time, and start outsourcing some of that as well. I think just helps you to free up some of your own mental space to work on the things you truly care about. So I think that goes along as well. That's something I've been dealing with too, in my own journey. And then, sorry, and you were saying, Back to your other question.
No, I want to talk about that outsource. That's a great point about outsourcing, because you're right. We tend to do, we want to do everything, especially if you're in a business owner or if you're working a professional career. Like somebody asked me one time, I was speaking to a corporation, we're doing a big training, and they said, "But what about, we have a deadline." I said, "Okay, so you have the deadline, but do you wait till the deadline's getting closer? Like it's like work backwards with the deadline and then look at your team and who can I like you're just calling outsource, who can I, on the team?" And what happens is when you do that outsourcing, or if it's whether it's your team or something, you actually, that other person, if it's to somebody that's going to be able to help you, you actually make them, you build them up because they're like, wow, they've got confidence in me, and so they want to do good, and that's a great leader too, is like you can recognize who on my team can do this. And the other thing is, we think as people pleasers, we have to do it all because nobody can do it better than me. Well, no, you're going to learn from somebody else. You might learn how to do it better. There might be a different way to do it better. Instead of driving a circular motion, maybe driving a straight line is the best way to go. And they teach you that, So I love that you remind us about outsourcing. The people pleaser needs to remember that. So write that down if you're listening to us. You want to outsource. I like that you said that. Yeah, but the question we'll circle back to is what happens, like you've got this vision, you've got this goal, and something big gets in your way or something gets in your way. How do you get back on track? How do you not lose going? I mean, people go, "Oh, well, it didn't, I lost all that time." So, like for instance, you start at the beginning of the year and 12 weeks have gone by, right? And I've learned from my business coach, Julie, she introduced us to the 12-week plan. Your quarter doesn't have to be January, February, March. It can be whenever your quarter starts, right? But sometimes people in their head think, okay, I've started this and 4 weeks have gone by. Oh, well, just forget it. It doesn't mean anything, right? But it's your goal. You put it down for a reason. How do you get your mindset back to getting back on track?
Yeah, and I think there's so many layers to that. So for one thing, there's something that I work with people on also is developing your six intellectual faculties, and some of those are like your will and your memory, your intuition, your imagination, and I'm losing sight of your reason. But especially things like your will, like your ability to focus. Things are coming in at you all of the time, right? Like we live in such a world now that you have so much information coming at you, and you can quickly get distracted on your goal, where you're going, your personal journey, and what you're doing, right? So even along the lines, somebody could come along and some negative comment or whatever it might be that can derail you, and you start to think, oh, I shouldn't be going towards this goal. Who am I to think that I could ever achieve this? I don't deserve it. Whatever it is, it could just, get you off your tracks and really affect the way that you're going. So that's where your will needs to come in, where you can choose what to accept and reject of all the information that comes to you and what you want to impress upon your subconscious mind. So that's going to help you stay focused when some of those little things come up, or, somebody has something that has you start to doubt yourself and where you're going. Then you can bring your focus back and remind yourself, why is this my goal? What am I trying to achieve? Because I tell you, if you have the desire for something, it's because your spirit wants you to, it's trying to express itself in that way. So you're not going to have a desire placed upon your heart for no reason. It's there for a reason, and nobody else can tell you why that is. So you need to be able to stay focused on your goal. Now, as you said, some really big things can happen. And if that happens, that's okay. You just get right back into it as soon as you can. Like if a huge event happens in your life, like what happened to you, it's perfectly understandable that you're going to get something handle it because you've got to deal with that. And you just have to give yourself the grace and the faith and belief, knowing that it will still happen. Your goal will still happen. So if you're familiar with Earl Nightingale at all and his work, probably, but like he would say, as soon as you set the goal, it's already accomplished. As long as you stay focused on it and you keep working on it and you stay in the spirit of it, it will happen. You just have to believe and have the faith that it's going to happen, no matter how big that goal is. And that's why I say we can 10x our business. It is possible. It is 100% possible. You have to have the faith the belief behind your goal and the emotion behind it, and just acting knowing that it is coming to you, that it is going to happen. So as long as you can stay in that and stay in that frame of mind, and you're gonna like every day is not gonna be perfect, right? We all know that. We all have our days where our focus isn't there. We're letting somebody, affect how our mindset is, whatever it might be. And then just keep coming back because you may not know, as we said before, the exact time frame that it's going to happen, but it will happen.
I love what you said too. The minute you write it down, it's already there. Like you've that's a first step, right? And it's so true. The minute you write it down, it's there already. And I like you the reminder to like to rewind. And I wrote that down. Rewind, why, what was my desire when I decided that this is the goal I want to do? What was that for, and then focusing on the goal. And the big thing too, I like what you said too, is give ourselves grace. Oftentimes we don't give ourselves grace. We beat ourselves up. Well, if I just done this, if I just done that. I love when I coach my clients, I'm like, look at life is not a remote. You cannot rewind. Trust me. I always say all the time, if I can rewind, there are so many things, including my son's passing, I would love to change, but I can't. It's already been determined. Like, and I think sometimes too, I have to remind myself and my clients, like, your path is already done. When you try to go, oh, I'm going to go left instead of straight, I'm going to go right instead of straight, you're just deviating. Stay on the straight and narrow because it's already planned out. You just got to follow the plan. Everybody always tries to tell you on the TV commercials and everything like that. Oh, if you do this, you'll get that. Today I was watching. I was on doing a post on social media about something, and somebody had shared an item. Like go get this, and it's free, and you can know why I do this way. And somebody put in the answer, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so true. It's like they suck you in. Right? They bring you in and then they go, oh, I'm going to give you this free. But if you pay this, you can get this. I'm so glad. And that's how we get deviated. We get sucked into, oh, it can get me there faster, but it's so faster. You are the pace that you're going to set. It doesn't matter what somebody gives you. Right. And so we have to remember that it's the path is already laid out. Just stick to the path and get help if you need to. So let's talk about that, Jeni. Like with what you do, before I talk about like getting the help, one thing I want to talk about, like, we're talking about the strategy and everything, and I always ask my guests and they share, so I kind of know a little bit about it, but the Shiro story, like your Shiro journey, and those that are listening for the first time, I'll remind you, Shiro means becoming stronger, learning to become happier, learning to live an empowered life, and showing up radiant in your life and being that original person you're supposed to be. And so I would love for you to share with the listeners what you put down about your Shiro story, which I know part of it was, putting your self-care, the importance in your self-care, like, that it's okay to go to the gym. I know you also talked about Bob Proctor, and what he's done and changed and some influence in your life. Talk to the listeners about your Shiro story. And then I got some other questions for you, wrapping up the vision part.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's been, kind of a long journey to get to where I am at this point. And I'm always continuing to work on it. It's never a complete task. But just some of the things, like I said before, I was a physical therapist, right, for a number of years. And, during that time, I was also working on my own personal growth and development and things on the side. And I never really was getting to the point, like it would help a little bit, but it was never quite getting me over the humps into where I really needed to be. And, I think like so many of us, I have times in my life where for a long time, I wish I could go back and change it. Looking back now, I realize that as much as those things sucked, they were necessary to get me to where I am now. And I don't want to relive it, but I am grateful for the lessons that I have learned from them. And part of that is the importance of me being able to take time to work on myself, because I cannot be a great mom and a great teacher, a great wife, or a great coach if I am not healthy and I am not constantly working on myself as well. So, and one of the biggest parts for me, like the physical part of just exercising, has never been a problem. That's always kind of just been something that it stayed consistent, ever since I was in high school. So just keeping up with that is important for me. and making the time for that to stay physically healthy, but really taking the time to work on my mental and emotional health was one of the biggest things that I needed to do in order to be able to just become a better person. And like I said, I'm still working on it, but I have to set aside time for that a little bit every single day. And then Sundays, I really don't schedule a lot of other stuff. It's our family time and just kind of a reset time for me that I really need. And I notice if I don't have that time, if something comes up and I have to do something on a Sunday that I don't normally do, I can feel it that week. Like I need that time to really reset so that I can be the best prepared to attack my week the way that I want to with the energy that I want to. So there's, a lot of practice and time, I've come to realize just how important that was for me. Oh, I can't
I
hear
no,
you.
I was on mute. Sorry.
Okay.
So what I was gonna say is like I love that you how you create the I like to call it harmony because I don't feel like we can ever have like straight balance in our life because things get can come up like we've been talking about here. Things can change and come up and deter what we have that plan for. And so I love that you talked about that, but I also liked how you talked about creating that family time. Like it's so important that if you're listening to us, like carving out time for your family for you first. You've got to be first, like you talk about going to gym and making that time, self-development, personal development, business development, all of that, but also creating the space to be able to have time with your family, with your friends, because that's important. At the end of the day, I when I work with professional women especially, I share with them, like, if there's so much on work, I'm like, so tomorrow, let's just put this in perspective. Tomorrow, if for some reason you're not here, they're going to slide somebody into that desk. They're going to put somebody into your position. So why are you continuing to give them all of that time when really they're not going to care tomorrow? They're going to miss you. Sure, they're going to care, but they're not going to care like your family cares. They're not going to miss you like your family misses you. And so that creating that harmony and balance and making that time, like I love that you talk about Sunday as family time. When our boys were home, that's what Sunday was like. That all week long, like we were on this health journey, and we used to have I call Sunday safe days. So Sunday we all make a list of what are the things we like to eat. And every Sunday, so once a Sunday, it was somebody's Sunday. So if it was Mom's Sunday, Dad's Sunday, Matt's Sunday, Nate's Sunday, we'd have for breakfast what Matt wanted, and we'd have for dinner what Matt wanted if it was his Sunday, right? So therefore, everybody kind of got to have their fun stuff, and so it became this thing in the family. And even now, like sometimes I'll say to my husband, because like again, like we lost our older son, and my younger son Nate is now married as of October. But I love when it was Nate's day or my day because him and I, we like pancakes. We like chocolate chip pancakes. So every so often I'll say to my husband, can I have mom day? And he'll like, you had mom Sunday last week. I'll go, oh, can we make it Nate Sunday then? He's like, he doesn't live here anymore. I'm like, yeah, but he's still there in my heart. So I still play the game. It's just fun, and it's important because those are the things that our kids are going to remember. I talked about going on this people pleasing journey and overcoming people pleasing. And one of my goals was to spend more time with my family, and especially my kids, as I went through this, setting up my vision. And so my strategy was, how do I make that happen? And so one of the things that I did was from a mentor, a coworker when I lived in Virginia, he would take one of his kids out every day. So every day he went I think he had 3 kids. So 3 days in a row, he would be out for breakfast with one of his kids. And I saw him one time, like, I see you often. And he explained that, listen, I have done this since he said he'd started when his kids were babies. So if you're listening to us and you're a new parent home, take notes. This is when you get your pen and paper out. He said, even when they could not talk, I would take them out because it gave my wife time when we just had one to herself, but it gave her time with the other one or other two. And he said, all the way through, even when they come home from college now, he said they still look forward to having breakfast with dad, because what he created was a safe space to have, as they got older, have intense conversations. He said they could talk sex, drug, rock and roll, whatever it was. There was no punishment. So if they did something that they knew they would get punishment, he goes, they would get creative and they would bring it to the table. But I didn't mind because at least they're being creative about sharing they did. Like if they knew it was something they would probably get, curfew on or get restriction on. He said they would bring that to the table. But he goes, I didn't mind it because then they really thought about what they did and I thought the seriousness of it. And then we could have conversations around the seriousness of it. Or if they had a goal they want to achieve, like, how do I achieve this goal? He said we would have conversations on it. And so I was like, I really like that. So, I started late with my kids, but it's never too late. Like my kids were in high school when I started this journey with them. But the cool thing I have to tell you, Jeni, is the best memory I do have of with my son's passing is 2 days before he passed. Matt was a huge football player. He loved playing football in high school. He played a year of it in college. And I could never throw a football to him. I was horrible to practice with. So and I couldn't even throw a baseball. So he was here in the garage. Him and my husband had a business together that they were doing, and they were taking care of some stuff in the garage. And he's like, "Hey mom, can you throw me a water bottle?" So I threw him a water bottle, and he's like, "You finally, not only have you figured out who the heck you are, but you finally have an arm." I'm like, he goes, "You can never throw a football, but you toss that water bottle." That's the really, truly last physical interaction I had before he passed. And to me, what it also said was my kids saw me learn to put myself first, and that energy that we created together, it's so important because your kids are a model of you. And so if you're listening, start that now. And as they got older, if they got out of school, like I said earlier, if Matt wanted to have sushi, that meant that he wanted to have a conversation with me. If Nate wanted to go to a movie, that meant he wanted to have a conversation. And so we still create that today. We still have those conversations. I actually just went to dinner with my son, Nate, and his wife a couple weeks ago. My husband's love language is conversation, calling in and checking on him. And he'll say, he won't say it, but I'll be like, "Have you heard from Nate lately?" He's like, "No, I haven't heard from him." And I know he's like frustrated, right? So I was like, okay, now he's married. Now, I'm like, okay. So I went to dinner with him and his wife, and I said, "Listen, I too love to hear from you, but I'll just call you. I don't care. I'll just pick up the phone and call you and harass you, right?" But I'm like, your dad wants you to be the initiator. He wants you to pick up the phone and call him. He's like, okay. And so he's doing that now. And they have, oh my God, they have long, hour-long conversations. So I say to my husband, I go, sometimes why he doesn't call you is he knows you guys are going to have these hour-long conversations and he can't talk to you that long. So maybe you make it a goal that when he calls you, you just quiet down, So it's just really cool how that happens. And, so in life, as we circle back around and like what your Shiro story is, not only are your goals are important, but having harmony in life, creating that space, like you and I are just talking about the Sunday, with our family. If you don't have family, like what's the one day that you just work on you? You don't bring any noise from the outside in and you just work on you. That needs to be part of your goals. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, because I can tell for sure if I'm not having that time and undistracted time, or, because so much of the week, even while we're schooling, so I'm multitasking all the time, and I want to be able to like spend that time of undivided attention with my family, with my kids and my husband. So it's so important.
So we can't let the hour go by. I mean, our time go by. I'm looking like, oh my gosh, we're having this is such great conversation. I love talking about goal setting and visions. So
Fun.
tell the audience, like when you work with your clients, what are some of the things you walk us through some of the steps for setting goals and stuff like that. When you talk about 10x, like how do you, because again, mindset, right? How do you help that entrepreneur break the mindset that I can't 10x my business? Like, how do you help them do that? How do you help them see the vision?
Yes. And, that's another thing that it has to come in time. But one of the things that I also focus a lot on is your self image. And I mean, you can never outperform your self image. So, kind of, you were talking about that thing that you did that was 6 weeks long. That sounds pretty similar in a way that you had to come out and know who you are. And so, when you set that goal, now you have to decide what kind of person has achieved that goal, right? So, how do I become the person that's already achieved that goal and become that person first before you even have the goal? And I mean, just through the time, the repetition and building those beliefs around it and really taking control over your mind, it all starts to line up. And it's just beautiful and so fun to see people amaze themselves. It's very cool.
I love that. I love and so those that are listening to us, like when Jenny's talking about this, her smile is so big. Like she really loves what she does. And so Jenny, anybody who wants to reach out to you, tell them how they can reach you. We'll also put it in show notes. So if you want to come back later and read the notes to the listeners and the viewers, please do that too. But let me know how they can reach you.
Absolutely. So the easiest way is if you go to www.bringonpossible.com. That has all of the links to all my contacts.
That's fantastic. So I'm so excited. So if you could give us one, and I didn't tell Jenny that we were going to do this, but just came to my mind. If you could give us one, like quote that it could be your own quote. So don't think you have to think of somebody's quote, but one quote around vision setting and being strategic about what would that be? Like one piece of advice.
Do not hold yourself back. Do not be afraid to dream beyond what your current results show.
I wrote that down. Don't hold yourself back and don't be afraid to dream. I love that. That's so amazing. Thank you so much. So we're going to I let Jenny know, everybody. So those that are new to the show and watching us, this is our Better Questions, Better Life cards. My friend Carol Gill and her friend Diane Allen put these together. And so they're cards you can journal over, meditate on, just read it to start your day. I love these cards. My kids have these cards, so they're just a lot of fun. So tell me when to stop. I'm going to shuffle and tell me when to stop, and we'll read your card. So here we go.
Stop.
Okay. Oh, this is a good one. I always like this one. And
Okay.
this is a question I ask my clients too. I talk about if you're not here tomorrow, Jenny, and we don't have the honor of talking to you, what are your friends and family going to say they saw you do for yourself? So this card says, "How do I want to be remembered?"
I hope that I would be remembered for being brave enough to step into, something that was totally different at first than what I had previously done, in stepping out to my own business and, not being afraid of what that looks like at first.
I love that. I feel like this whole conversation truly has been like what you just said. Like, don't be brave enough to do something different, and don't be afraid to do it. I think it's a powerful, very, very powerful. You should write that down for yourself, young lady.
Cheers.
Well, I want to thank you for joining us and being on. And I want to thank our listeners. If you enjoyed, make sure you like and follow and comment below. Follow us on YouTube, follow us on all the podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and all that great stuff you find and listen to your podcast at. And then also, I want to remind you that you come into this world, life can be challenging and cause all kinds of tough things in your life. You've got this tough shell on the outside. But as you open it up and really work on the things we're talking about, set your goals and don't be afraid to dream, you'll find your inner pearl to greatness. And I hope today you had enough things to help you not be afraid and go after your inner dreams. Have a great day. Oh my gosh, you guys, that was such a fun conversation with Jenny. And I hope you got some inspiration to start being a little more daring and lavish with your dreams. Like, don't be afraid to dream. Like she was saying, like, don't do anything to hold yourself back. If you're struggling with what do you want to dream about? What's your biggest dream? If you had that magic wand and you could really think about if you could achieve that one thing, what does it look like? Write that down. Write that down and think about what are those things. Don't just limit yourself to one. Setting our goals and being strategic about them are so important. So like she said, the ladder, if you're doing something today that is, you already kind of know how to do it, but you want to up the ante a little bit, what do you need to do to accomplish that? Who do you need? Right? What do you need to become that Shiro of your goals? Like, how can you become stronger? How can you become happier? How can you be empowered to really go after these goals so that you start radiating in your life as you achieve these goals? Like, you're going to walk in the rooms and people are going to see you doing things so differently. And then you're going to become that original self, and you're going to have your own Shiro journey story that you'll be able to share with somebody about. This is when I made this decision. This is when I started showing up as a Shiro in my life. And if you want some help on that, if you're struggling with what that can look like, just do me a favor and go to wsliving.com Shiro and grab a mini coaching session with me today. I would love to have some time with you and help you start honing in on what that big dream is for you. And if nothing else, I just want you to know that you are a Shiro already, and you are amazing, and you deserve all the wonderful things that are waiting for you to happen on your path and your journey this year. Have a great day.
All clean. Why'd it take so long to